I walked away from my job many years ago, and I have never looked back. And this video is going to be me recapping everything that I've gone through to get to this point in my life. Because if you're someone that's thinking about leaving your job for entrepreneurship or for content creation, you might be scared out of your mind. But I'm here to tell you that it is definitely worth it, all right? So the long story is I've had a plethora of jobs throughout my life. At one point, I started off when I was, 15 years old. I worked at a place called Farmer Brown's in Valdosta, Georgia. That was my first job. I would work from 6:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night for back then it was like $30 a day. And so I've always understood the value of hard work, at least that's what I was programmed to believe. And then I left Harvey's Supermarket, and then then I went from Farmer Brown Supermarket to Harvey's Supermarket. And I worked in the produce department at Harvey's Supermarket from 16 to maybe 18. And then when I turned 18, I went to work at a factory job at Shaw Industries, 7 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, graveyard shift. And I remember being in the break room thinking to myself, I can't end up like the rest of these old people that are barely walking into this break room, bragging about they're making $20 an hour. I'm like, I can't do this. So I ended up quitting Shaw Industries, and then I worked at Journey's Shoe Store. And shortly after that, I became an assistant manager at Journey's Shoe Store. And then I got a second job at J.C. Penney's cleaning I was a janitor at J.C. Penney's. This is all in my teens, and I would say I was 19 or 20 at the time. So I worked at Journey's Shoe Store as an assistant manager. I would get off at Journey's Shoe Store and go down to J.C. Penney's and clean like the dressing rooms and the bathrooms. And then at one point I had 3 jobs, believe it or not. I had J.C. Penney's, I had Journey's Shoe Store, and I worked at this restaurant called Remington Grill, all at the same time. 3 jobs before I was 21 years old. And from there, I ended up quitting J.C. Penney's and Remington Grill, and I still worked at Journey's Shoe Store. And at the time, I was rapping. I was doing some rap music, and I gained I became pretty popular in my city. And I realized at that point I couldn't work at a shoe store anymore, so I ended up quitting. That was around 2008. In 2008, I quit working at Journey's Shoe Store, had my first son, Cade. I struggled as a rapper for a long time. I mean, their mom was not really supportive of my rap dreams, which I understand. She told me to get a real job or get out, so I got out. I knew I didn't want a real job. I looked around at everybody that was an adult, and I saw that they were living like crap. I didn't want to live like them. I wanted to live my dreams. And so I got out. I ended up staying at a friend's house, staying with the girl, staying with, anybody that I could for the longest. And it was just one struggle after the next, one struggle after the next. I mean, very bad. And then one day, maybe 2 months later, after leaving my kid's mom, I ended up being featured in Source magazine. Okay, so this cover right here with Nelly on the front. Okay, I was in this one, and this was in 2000, and this is August 2008. I don't know if you guys can see that. August 2008. And if you go, this is so there I am, Source magazine, August 2008. And when this happened, man, I was like, I knew I could do it. You know, I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. And I became like a local celebrity in my city, man, because nobody had been in Source magazine before. And then after this, I started getting on the road and started traveling some of everywhere, started doing shows in places like Ogden, Utah, St. Louis, Florida. I even ended up recording a song with Freeway from Rockefeller Records, one of Jay-Z's artists at the time. And none of that ever would have happened if I would have stayed at that job, you know? And then 2009, I got into Source magazine again with Bun B. So this time I'm like in the front of that thing. Look at that. 2009. This is April 2009. So that was pretty amazing. You know, I got to live my dreams every single day, doing things my way. And by this time I was making some decent money doing shows, but I was still struggling here and there. And I was fighting depression really bad because a lot of you don't know that I was born in a very toxic household. I witnessed a lot of family violence growing up. My dad was an alcoholic. He was, when I say abusive, I don't mean no, he was violent. He was a very violent man, very violent. And then he ended up dying on his birthday when I was 16. So I had a lot of trauma. And by this time, I already had multiple kids. So it's like, on one hand, I was living my dreams. On the other hand, I was fighting depression. And I rapped up until 2011. And I was so depressed that I ended up convincing myself that I was going to take my life. And at that point, I was just like, I'm done. I'm so done. I was tired of trying. I was tired of trying to be successful and then failing. And I was so tired of the alcohol. I was so tired of being surrounded by drugs. I was so tired of just the world. And then I had a spiritual awakening. Right before I decided to take my life, I closed my eyes and started having this internal dialogue with myself and ended up getting into meditation, self-help. That changed everything for me. When I got into meditation and self-help, I started to believe that I could do anything. Like anything was possible at this point. Anything is possible at this point. And I just went for everything that I wanted to go for in life. And I did. So 2011, I walked away from music. I ended up having this spiritual awakening. And basically, I just checked out from the world for a while. From like 2011 to 2013, I just kind of checked out. And my girlfriend at the time, in that first 1 or 2 years, she took care of everything, you know, because I was just like, I need to get myself together. I need to find me. I need to get myself together. And so she made it to where we had our bills taken care of and things of that nature in the beginning. And I went and discovered myself. And then I started making money on the internet. I started making money on Amazon, selling products on Amazon, selling products on eBay, Etsy, you name it. And I ended up making my first 6 figures in about 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. And I never looked back. I never looked back. And then a friend of mine who loaned me some money years ago when I was a rapper, he asked me to repay him by helping him grow his apartment complex and basically just doing the marketing for his apartment complex. And in exchange for that, he'd give me a free apartment with all expenses paid. All I had to do was bring my own furniture. The internet was taken care of. It was the 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo at Harmon Heights apartment complex in Valdosta, Georgia. I agreed to do it for a year, but ended up staying out there for like 3 years. And I was still making money online during that time. You know, I was still making money on the internet while I was out there, but I went out there to just promote. And then I ended up driving the van because they had a transportation van for foreign students that lived at the apartment complex that needed a ride to college. So I ended up driving the van, and then I ended up showing people apartments. And then I ended up doing leases. And then one day he just like, man, you're doing so good. Just take over the entire company. So I ended up being a property manager for like 2 of those years. And I was still making money on the internet, doing property management on the side. I mean, doing property management as well. But I was growing disgruntled by the day because I felt like I could be doing something else. So here I was, you know, although on paper I was an independent contractor, here I was again in my mind working for somebody, and I knew I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. So I ended up starting a web development company, and that web development company started to take off really fast. And I just knew I had to stop working. I had to stop working for the apartment complex, and I had to go for my dreams. And that was tough because my friend owned the apartment complex. So that was really tough for me to go to him and say, man, I thank you for all the opportunities you've given me, but I feel like I got to go out on my own. I just knew I was missing out on a ton of time, a ton of money. And I knew that I had to go on this journey. And so, by the way, I made it to where my girlfriend at the time, who took care of me for those first 2 years, I made it to where she didn't have any bills for 3 years because everything was covered, from the work that I was doing at the apartment complex. So that was my way of paying her back for everything she'd done for me as well. And so now I'm leaving this cushy position to where I got this apartment. I'm getting 3% of all the money that I'm collecting from the tenants, and I'm making money on the internet. But now I'm about to slice my income because I'm leaving the apartment complex. Plus I'm leaving the condo that I had, which I already moved out the condo, and I rented it out to a police officer for like $700 a month in cash, because the police officer having a police officer at your apartment complex makes the tenants feel safer. And so usually when you see a police officer at an apartment complex, they're getting an extremely discounted or even free rent a lot of times, because they're there to take the calls at the hours. And, if there's any complaints or parties, the police officer that lives there addresses it. So I moved out of my apartment complex, rented it out to a police officer. So it was hard for me to leave that position because, first of all, my friend owned the company. I didn't want to disappoint him. Number two, I was making 3% of all the income that I was collecting from the tenants. And then number three, I was putting all the cash from the apartment complex in my pocket. Number four, I had my online business going, and then I started a web development company. So I had like 5 streams of income just from that alone. Not to mention my girlfriend at the time grew extremely comfortable not having any rent, not paying any bills. And now I'm saying, hey, I'm about to go get this other house and we're going to split everything. And I know a lot of guys are like, you don't split things with a woman. That's you. Everybody's different. But for me, especially at that time, I was like, I need to split everything because the rest of this money needs to go towards me putting into the business, because I want to keep growing the business. So I've gone through a lot of adversity to get to where I am today. And over the years, I've built multiple companies, including Southern Web Service, Overstock Domain, Web Asset Group, and now it's the Mind Master Society. And I'm just going to share my journey throughout the day on what it really takes to quit your job and never look back. Okay, so one of the things you're going to need on your road to entrepreneurship is you're going to need motivation, inspiration. And that's why for me in the beginning, I listened to the success stories of other successful people, because that continued to convince me that it was possible. So that's why I'm sharing my story with you guys, because hearing other people's success story gives you the confidence to believe that it's possible for you, because I know it did for me. So that's one of the things you're going to need in order to have the courage to go for your entrepreneurial dream, to quit your job full time, or to quit your job and go full time on your vision. And for me, I didn't have anything. I didn't even have savings. I just did it. I was like, I have nothing to lose. And so you have to have that mentality in my mind where you, even if you have savings, like go for your vision like you have nothing to lose. If you really believe in this vision. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen a lot of people start and stop. And it was because the hunger wasn't there. You know, so you gotta have a talk with yourself in the beginning. Hey, have a talk with yourself in the beginning that you're not gonna give up no matter what. All you gotta do is keep adjusting your strategy and have a goal in your mind. I like to set daily goals. How much money do I want to make every day? And then focus on that number. Because for me, money was the first thing that was important to me. Well, after my happiness, I learned how to be happy. Then I said, I want to make money because I knew that if I made money, I would have more control over my life. And so I just put a number in my head, and I was so broke at the time that, you know, the first goal I had, this is don't sound bad, but the first goal I had was like $33 a day. And I was like, if I can make $33 a day, I'll be fine. I believe it was possible. But really that first $30 or $35 that I made on the internet convinced me that it was possible. And from that moment, I never looked back. So one of the most important things you're gonna have is you're gonna have to have courage, because being an entrepreneur, although it's glorified on social media, it's not the easiest thing in the world in the beginning. And the reason why it's not the easiest thing in the world in the beginning is because in the beginning, you're going to be up against your old programming that teaches you to go to school, get a safe job, and you're going to have to go against all the other people that think that way, right? So it's going to be abnormal for you. It's going to be a shock to your nervous system. So you're going to have to build up courage over time in order to stick with it so that you eventually become successful. Now, if you have the right mindset and are able to see yourself as the successful version of yourself that you intend to be in the future, if you have the courage to see that vision and then live it out without any disruption to your narrative, you might experience success quicker. So with entrepreneurship, you just got to believe in your own ability to make your income. And I always tell people, don't start off being realistic, start off being unrealistic. Because if you're unrealistic and you end up reaching higher, you're going to cover your realistic goals anyway. So just be unrealistic. And then surround yourself around people that have already done it. People that have already tried and most importantly, succeeded. Now, one time I told this guy that I was a self-made millionaire. He told me, he said, you're not self-made. He says, nobody is self-made because somebody had to help you out along the way. And I said, you're right, but I'm still self-made. I said, because if I didn't convince myself it was possible, I would have never attracted the people that helped me out along the way. Not only did I attract the people that helped me out, I had to convince them to believe in my vision, to believe that they could rely on a startup company for income to feed themselves, to feed their families. And the vast majority of it was done by myself. I took my own money. I didn't go to the banks to get any money. I literally started out with 25 cents to my name and continued to flip my way into profit. And I have literally in the beginning gone down to zero twice and had to build my way back up. And so still being self-funded, self-educated. So if I'm self-funded and self-educated, I am self-made.